Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the SaaS Marketing Show. I'm super excited for this one. So we are joined by John Rougeux, who is the VP of Marketing Strategy at BombBomb. So BombBomb is a platform that enables you to quickly and easily add video to any message, helping you save time, increase response rates, and generate better results from any of your messaging and outreach, etc. John, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Hey, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So today we're going to talk specifically about a recent campaign that you guys did at BombBomb where you were able to onboard, it was either close to or just over 4,000 teachers into the platform within a few days through word of mouth. So we're going to deep dive on that, kind of how that came about, the strategies for doing that. But before we jump into that, I would love to find out a little bit more about you and the team at BombBomb so we can share that with everybody listening. So we were talking just before we hit record, speaking about, okay, so the title VP of Marketing Strategy, like what does that cover at a company like BombBomb? Because as we said earlier on, we often hear of like VPs of marketing, CMOs, etc. VP of Marketing Strategy is something that I don't see as often. So I'd love to find out kind of what your role is like at BombBomb and maybe what the marketing and kind of growth team structure is like at the moment as well.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most relevant thing I can tell you at the moment to start things off is that I just joined BombBomb 3 months ago. So I'm still kind of getting a lay of the land, earning my wings, so to speak, and helping us, put the right strategy in place going forward. But a little bit about BombBomb. We have a chief evangelist, Ethan Butte, who can do a far better job of this than me. But the way I describe it to people today is, when we communicate with other people, the best way is always face-to-face, right? Ideally that's in person. The next best thing is something like what we're doing now over Zoom, so live communication. But we can't always talk live to each other, right? It's just not practical. And so unfortunately, the next best thing that currently most people have available to them is just text. So a text message in Slack, a text message on your phone, a plain text email. And, we all know, we've all experienced these situations where your email just doesn't get interpreted the right way. The emotion doesn't come through, the context doesn't come through, not to mention all the time that it can take to explain a complex topic. And so that's where, video messaging and video engagement solutions like BombBomb come in. We allow you, like you said, to send video. We make it very easy and fast to record, send and then track videos that you can send across a variety of platforms. So that's what we do in a nutshell. In terms of me and my role, before we recorded, you were asking me what the heck a VP of Marketing Strategy was. And to be honest, I had this exact same question late in 2019 when I was, asked about the role. I had just left an Australian-based SaaS company that I was working for and had decided to pursue consulting, kind of like what you're doing. And I got a few months into that. At the time, I was really focused on helping companies with thinking through positioning, thinking through messaging strategy. I've spent a lot of time thinking about category design and how that fits into things. And so when BombBomb approached me about this role, I'd never heard of a VP Marketing Strategy. I didn't know what that was. But when we kind of broke it down, it ended up being in line with those things that I just described. So, a lot of marketing roles are, tactically focused, kind of short term, like how are we going to hit numbers this week, this month? But what a lot of SaaS companies don't spend enough time on is thinking through kind of the longer term, like what's the foundation for what we're doing? How do we go from where we are today, which is a little over 20 million? How do we go from that to 100 million ARR? How do we get to, a billion if that's our aspiration? And so that's a lot of what I'm focusing on is historically, I think BombBomb was founded in 2006, believe it or not, which is very old for a SaaS company. They were very focused on some niche industries where like video was solving a very immediate and very pressing problem. So places like real estate, mortgage, automotive industries where like people need to interact with clients, and having that face-to-face time is really valuable. And so what we're focused on now is, of course, broadening that. And as we've seen more and more people get comfortable with video, use video, understand the importance of face-to-face, we're broadening those target markets. And so a big part of my job is figuring out how we're going to do that.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Cause I know that you're, as you said, like still figuring things out too, right? It takes time to to get those, to figure out which direction you're heading in with, especially any kind of leadership position or senior position as well. It's cool to hear that you touched on it very briefly, but we always cover this with everyone that comes on the show, just talking about some standards, I guess, of where the business is at. So BombBomb founded in 2006. I find that super interesting actually for a video business. Like, I know you haven't been there, you've only been there a few months, right? But was back in 2006, has it been video from the very beginning? Like, have there been many pivots, do you know? Because I would imagine, like, we know of platforms like BombBomb, like Loom, Drift have come out with video now too. These all seem to me very recent, like over the last few years. I didn't realize actually something like this was around in 2006. I know it would have been slightly different, but has it always been video focused?
Right. It's always been, yeah. So our co-founder Connor, he sent his first video email in 2006, and so that was kind of the core thrust of the company early on. And like, just for some context, in 2006, so the iPhone didn't come out until a year later.
Wow.
So like this idea of like recording videos on our phone, that, I mean, unless you consider like, cell phone videos, just crappy cell phone videos, that didn't really exist as a thing you could do until at least 2007. Google bought YouTube, I think that same year as well. And so like Instagram didn't come out for another 4 years. And so the world was a very different place. I think people have always needed had this need to get face to face, but like our usage of video and the technologies to support that, and just people's level of comfort with video was at a much different point way back then. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Because I remember, so when I worked at Hootsuite, like maybe 3.5, 4 years ago, some of the like product team had just done a bit of a spin-off from Hootsuite to set up Vidyard. And I remember we were using Vidyard in the sales team 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer. I can't remember exactly. But at that point, we were like, anyone that received a video message from us thought we were like completely changing the game kind of thing, because very few other people were doing that. And so I can't even imagine what the response would have been like in 2006, 2007, 2008, like even for years after that. So that's really cool. You mentioned that the business above 20 million ARR, which is awesome. You said to me before we recorded just over 50,000 paying customers, which is great. So thanks for sharing all of that stuff. And the business has been bootstrapped like fully, right, to 20 million ARR.
Yep.
Awesome. That's
yeah,
so
no
cool.
no VC money. Yep.
Wow, awesome. Okay, cool. That's great. Thank you for sharing all of those things. What does the marketing team look like? How many people do you guys have in marketing at BombBomb?
We're in the middle of making some changes right now. So so the answer might be different when this is released, but I think we're about, I want to say around a dozen at the moment. We've kind of historically, well, not even historically, because we've gone through some changes the last year. The idea was that like my role, again, it's more focused on strategy, long-term thinking.
Yep.
We've had some other roles that are more operationally and tactically focused. We're making a few changes there to just help us get better with. The biggest transition I think we had, this was before I joined, but our software used to be a very like sales, like a hands-on sales approach. So someone would request a demo and then our sales team would walk them through that. But we've transitioned to more of a self-service model where for most people, if they're just signing up as an individual user, they're buying the product, we're providing resources and training, but the expectation is they would kind of sign up on their own. So we're investing some more resources to help make that happen and happen better. And then that allows our sales and our ABM teams to focus more on SMB and mid-market.
Got it. Okay, cool. That makes sense. So let's jump into the topic that we had scheduled in for today. So I know that you guys, I saw something about this on LinkedIn when you were running this, and then that's what led us to. We've been meaning to talk and get you on a podcast for a while anyway, but I know that we decided this would be the kind of catalyst for that, or the episode.
Yeah.
But you guys recently ran a campaign focused on supporting teachers and people within education. So could you just tell us a little bit more about what that campaign was and how you came up with the idea, and then we can kind of deep dive into some of the action points of how you actually went through with that.
Yeah, I think the place that I'll start is actually the culture of our company, which is maybe not a typical thing to say in a SaaS podcast, but we were all, personally affected in a very small way. We had to start working from home with COVID-19. That was a very small thing, but we also saw like all these other people who were facing much more dire circumstances all over the world. And as a team, we just asked ourselves, like, what's the right thing to do in this situation, right? Like, we're not doctors. We're not going to, cure people. We're not going to make masks or anything like that, but everybody can do something, big or small. And so we asked ourselves, like, what does that look like for us? And along with that, we realized that a lot of us have children or, who are in school, and, we're married to teachers, or we're friends with teachers, or, our parents were teachers. And so we saw that all these teachers were having to teach remotely from home, which, teaching is never an easy job, but having to do that in a completely different context, like all at once, we knew that was super tough. And we also looked at our product, and we know that we can help people communicate better when they can't be there in person. And of course, teachers, they're there in person every single day normally, and now all of that is broken. So we thought, we had this hypothesis that, man, this, like, theoretically, this should work really well for teachers. They could communicate class assignments, they can give feedback on homework, they can provide some updates to parents because they can't do these live in-person conferences. We knew that there had to be a dozen use cases, all the way down from kindergarten all the way up through university. And so we thought, man, if we can make this available to teachers, this is going to be huge. We think this is going to really help. But, like, how do we actually do that, right? Like, we don't have a free product, and we were not going to charge teachers for this. Like, even doing a discount, like, that wasn't in our DNA. We just wanted to make it accessible. So how do we make it available for free? How do we help them know about it, at scale? And then once they get access, like, how do we make them successful with the software and actually get value from it? Those are the three things that we started to think about. So if you like, I can kind of break those down and give you some more detail on each.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because I also know one thing that I'm interested in is, as you said, like, education, teachers is an industry that is totally new for you guys as well, right? Like,
That's right.
You didn't have any or maybe a couple of education-based customers before. So I'm interested, like, I can understand the logic behind how you ended up in that point, right? Like, leading from that place of humility and trying to support people. But from a business standpoint, it'd be really cool to find out, okay, how do we go about doing this? And then also, like, what do we have to change, if anything, in terms of our, like, approach to this launch? Because I know I saw you posting about it on LinkedIn. I'm sure other members of the team were posting about it too, but I would love to see, like, what that strategy was like as well. Like, how did you get in front of the teachers if you had no network there previously too?
Yeah. So, well, let's start there, because that's probably the most interesting. We can come back to the product, but that's more tactical, I think. So, like you said, we got about 4,000 teachers signed up in just a few days, in a short period of time. And that was all through word of mouth. I was looking at our Google Analytics the other day, and, like, 46% of the traffic is referral. A lot of that ends up being from social, and then about 40% of it is direct, which just means people are just sharing the links that we put out there with no tracking in place. And so we really did two things. One, we've got over 50,000 users, and we knew that they would be, like, they're buying into video for the right reasons. They know what it's capable of, and so we knew that starting there would be a great way to, like, get the word out. So we put together some messaging. We did some videos around, like, how we can help teachers and how this is an opportunity for everyone to step up and act with kindness during this time. And we made it very clear, like, this is something we're doing to help. It's not we're not going to, like, charge teachers later on, and this is a way for us to make more money. Like, we just said, hey, look, you're maybe like us, you're probably married to a teacher, or you know one, or your children are in school. Here's a way that you can help, right? Very simple. A couple emails we sent out to our customers. We built a landing page just for teachers. I'm sure it's still going to be live when this is published. It's BombBomb.com/education. And it was like, we tried our best to, like, lay out kind of what they were going through. We had Ethan, our evangelist, do a short video about what they were going through. And I think the thing that probably stands out to me most is, like, we didn't pretend to have all the answers figured out for teachers, right? But we didn't say, like, this is exactly how you're going to use it, and we know exactly what you're going through. We own that, and we said, hey, look, we don't really work with a lot of teachers, but we imagine that this is something that can help you, and we want to make that happen. And so, like, as a quick follow-up to that, we put together training resources. So, like, the very first business day, it was a Monday that this went live. I think we launched it over the weekend. On that first Monday, we said, hey, we're going to do a webinar for teachers, and it's going to be, it's going to be live. We're going to have teachers on. We want to, like, show you what this is and learn from you about like, what are we missing? What are ways, you can use this that we haven't thought about? What questions do you have, or things like that? And we started doing these daily webinars every single day. And just the fact, I have to believe that we were not just giving the products away, but that we were investing the time and the resources into helping teachers. Just like with any customer, when you create that goodwill, they're going to talk about it with their friends, with their colleagues, and that helps drive even further word of mouth. So that was a big piece. The other piece is our team did a great job of sharing this on social. I mean, it started like our president, he set the example, Darren Dawson's his name. He shared it on like a Friday night, and he got like 200 shares on his Facebook post. And so then he encouraged the team. He's like, hey, people are responding really well to this. I encourage you guys to do the same. And we did. A lot of our team shared it on different social channels, and we got even more, pickup through that as well. So it was really just those two tactics, Dylan, that email and that word of mouth on social that helped drive everything.
That's so awesome, because like I think it's morning for you right now. It's afternoon for me, and maybe in my morning. So a few hours ago, I did an interview with Andy, who's the CMO at Leadfeeder, the company where I used to work before setting up Hey Digital, and was talking with them about their kind of response to this whole situation, but more specifically what they've been doing with webinars. Now, I don't know which order these episodes are going to go out, so anyone watching or listening to this, definitely go and check that episode out with Andy Culligan from Leadfeeder. But they've been running webinars with some really good success in terms of like viewer numbers, and then just bringing like educating people too, but then it's converted into some good leads for the business. But when I asked him about, okay, what's your strategy for promoting these webinars, like how have you been able to get, there was one webinar they did last week where they had like 1,800 people register for the webinar, and like a pretty good show up rate too. And he was like, look, it's not as complicated as most people think. The two channels that we've utilized is, number one, like our own audience of customers and email lists, like showing them that we're doing something that's actually useful to people and not just a crappy piece of content or whatever it might be. And then number two is leveraging everyone on the team using their social channels and their social accounts and really just pumping this up. And that combined with the effect of like, hey, we've spent the last however many years building this brand and this authority in this business, so that now when we do try and launch something and it's valuable, like people really pick up on that. And so it's cool to hear you kind of echo that point as well, because I think a lot of the time, especially with marketing and especially with SaaS companies, it's very easy to be looking for that quick hack or that quick tip or trick. And I know it's not ideal for someone maybe early that's listening to this, but it really does prove that if you lead from the heart, lead from the right place, and you do something that's actually good or actually useful, and then get people excited about being involved in that process, those are the kind of projects that more often than not end up performing pretty well. And it's not difficult to get people to the team to share things on social. Like if the team are passionate about it, like you just said. So you said that you were pretty inspired by the president of BombBomb, the way that he did it. Andy had the exact same approach. I asked him like, hey, I've noticed you've been super active on LinkedIn, like talking a lot about this webinar and how you've been approaching them recently. Like why is that? And he was saying that he was using his post as an opportunity to like build up the morale in the team as well, especially with salespeople who might be a little bit not down right now, but a bit apprehensive about everything that's going on. If they see, we're getting all these people registering or coming in and using the platform, and we're helping all these people out, everyone else gets excited. And when everyone else is excited in the team, good things happen as a result of that. So it's pretty cool to hear the similarities between the way that they approach things and that you guys approach this specific like project or launch as well.
Right. Yeah. And that word excitement, that's really key. And that it kind of leads to the last thing that I should probably say about this, which is, I mentioned these tactics, right? But I think the most important thing was what allowed those tactics to happen, which was the mindset we had going into it.
Yeah.
And that mindset was that like, it's not going to be perfect, right? We launched this in 48 hours. And we've got 150 people. And I didn't say anything about, I don't think we have time to go into like the engineering work that had to happen to like allow free accounts to be a thing. We did this soup to nuts, like 48 hours and across a bunch of different departments. And there was so much excitement about this. People were, working, like dropped everything they were doing to work on this. And, doing something at that scope within just like 2 days doesn't happen unless you're excited, unless you have this mindset, like it's not going to be perfect, but it's the right thing to do. And we need to let some of that perfection go just to get this done and help people out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'm hoping that's going to roll over into you guys like continued marketing strategy, and for other people listening to this as well, like after all of this situation like blows over, right, and when things go back to normal, quote unquote, like it's interesting to see that, hey, I'm seeing that people are actually, it's weird that it's taken something like this for people to figure out how to actually market in like a human way rather than just hey, I'm doing this because it's what everybody else does, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Right. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing the story behind like how you guys have done that. I would like to ask just one more, or maybe one or two more quick questions, and then we'll wrap things up. So I know we agreed to kind of dive deep into that that launch, if you want to call it, or this special for the teachers and people in education. But it would be cool to hear from you too, like as the VP of Marketing Strategy early on in this role, a couple months in, like what else is on the radar for you in terms of activities that you're wanting to either expand into or try out, or things that are working well for you at the moment? I know you use the term like category definition as well, which is something that interests me. Like what else is top of mind for you guys, especially as you're transitioning to trying to bring in some more of these self-serve customers as well?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that term category design, that's something that I can share a little bit on. And it's a strategy that doesn't apply to most companies, but it's a strategy that does apply when you're in a situation where most of your buyers are not aware of the problem that you solve, and there's not like a good context for describing the solutions to that problem. And so, just like most of the people listening today, they're probably not familiar with BombBomb. They're probably not familiar with, video messaging and video engagement type solutions. Maybe they've heard of them, but it's still new to most people, right? And so our biggest challenge right now is not that like BombBomb is better than this company or that company or some of our competitors. It's more fundamental than that. It's the fact that like people don't know that like there's a lot of pain that comes from just relying on text.
Right.
And that now, hey, there's a solution that can help you get that face time when you can't get face to face. That's what we're working on right now. And to help us get there, this is probably a topic for another episode, but we're thinking through like, what are the next best fits in terms of target markets for us? What are the capabilities we have as a company that'll allow us to serve those markets better than others who have this, similar solution? And then, what is this category? We're thinking of what the name for the category needs to be. I mentioned a couple options out there, but like, what is that name? Like, what does that mean? Like, how can we develop a point of view around why this category needs to exist and market that to the world, more so than like all of our features and
right.
Technological developments, things like that. So, following in the footsteps of how companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, and Terminus have gone and developed new categories, we're in the very same boat because, like I said, people don't know what this is. They don't really know about the problem and know about the solution. So we're really focused on the right content, the right messaging, the right kind of advertising campaigns to get that across.
Yeah, another really good example of someone that's done that very well is Drift too, right? With conversational marketing. Like they've totally coined a whole phrase that's now just embedded into what chat is essentially for SaaS companies and stuff. They've done a really good job there.
That's right. Yeah. So they've got a great chatbot software, and they've taken chatbots to another level instead of just being like a little live chat, widget that lives on the corner of your screen. Chatbots are so much more, and you're right. They went through that same process of category design, and here they are with conversational marketing.
Right. Is that the kind of thing that, like, I know you said before you came to BombBomb you were doing like consulting and supporting people with this. Is that the kind of thing that really gets you like pumped up about how you're going to go out and approach this kind of category design and how you position yourselves and stuff like that?
Yeah. For me, it does. That's the way I'm wired. So I love that stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it was really good to have you here. Like, thank you for sharing those tips. I think even though this is, I guess, like a campaign that you guys ran specific to the time that we're in right now, I think a lot of the things that you talked about and approaches that you guys use can and should be replicated in a lot of other marketing campaigns that people are going to be looking at and launching for their SaaS companies. And I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing. So yeah, it was really good to have you on the show, and thank you for your time. Yeah, my pleasure, Dylan. It was a lot of fun, and good luck with continued success on your podcast.